show for a Christmas edition of the show, Radio Rocketman. With me, as always, the great Luigi. Hello, Luigi.
Hello, hello. How
Hello.
are you doing, George?
I'm doing great. The world not so much, but this is our Christmas, our Christmas edition. I think we're not gonna get another episode, right? No, I think this is gonna be the one before the Christmas festivities. I've said this word far too many times. How are you, Luigi?
Very well, very well. And yeah, as we've pointed out on this show many times, the Europeans don't really like to work around Christmas.
No, no. Yeah, should we
Yeah,
carry
yeah.
on from topics from last week's topics?
To dive right in.
And at the start of the last episode, I find myself, Luigi, in the peculiar position of having to say, I'm not gonna say correct, but elaborate on my previous points last episode. And I remember when I said last time that Hamas, and we've got an article, this is backed up by many articles. The Intercept is a legit newspaper. When I said that hummus, Luigi, hummus.
Hummus.
The powerful hummus. That it was just a natural reaction to decades of oppression because these people have been oppressed and unbelievably. More than half their land has been stolen, basically, those decades. But it's actually, when I say it was a natural reaction to that, which I mean, most people would sort of understand, I think, to be honest, if it was just that without any outside interference whatsoever. But it's not even that. It's not even fully natural. I mean, as you can see, we've got quotes by people in the former Israeli officials from very high up that basically admit that at least partly they funded the whole thing, and they funded this shit, Luigi, just to
Yeah.
fuck with the Palestinian secularists and leftists and murder a bunch of their leaders. And they did, especially the ones who wanted peace. Why? Because it looks better where your enemies are a bunch of violent fundamentalists, right? I mean, God forbid you get a Gandhi on your ass. So you remember when we discussed Henry, they basically did what Henry used to do, but on a micro scale. A micro Henry.
Nobody did better.
Honestly, Jesus Christ, Avren Cohen, Hamas to migrate to Grace Israel's creation, former Israeli religious affairs official who worked in Gaza for more than 2 decades for the Wall Street Journal. We've got quotes by the general. Yeah, this is pretty legit. The Israeli government gave me a budget. The retired brigadier general confessed, and the military government gives to the mosques. Hamas to migrate to Israel's creation. I suggest for you, yeah. So they created all this.
According, of course, to the Intercept article, but yeah, this seems to be pretty legit.
And not
yeah,
just the Intercept article.
Of course, the citing evidence, obviously, but yeah, I think it's not disputable even at this point that they have assistance.
That's why I said partly. I'm not going to attribute wholly, but at least partly 100%. This is legitimate. So you've created this monster to avoid resolving anything peacefully, politically, the way, 1967 borders, give them at least East Jerusalem, etc. Because you don't want to do that because you have the advantage, basically. You have the military advantage, you have the backing of the world superpowers, so you don't want to give them because you already can gain more out of this equation.
There's no clear player in the region that can challenge you except for Iran, who has been, let's say, besieged. Like Iran, at least economically speaking, still has sanctions on it. So every other country nearby is no longer a threat. So yeah, you have the total advantage in a sense yourself. So yeah, why would you ever give that back willingly?
So you play divide and rule in the occupied territories. You back Palestinian Islamists. You make them win the war, whatever, against Palestinian secularists who are far more willing to negotiate peace. So you create a bunch of fundamentalist terrorists, basically, and then you just go to war with them for the next decades. And it's disgusting, isn't it? The level of degradation and oppression that these people have been put through by the state of Israel is beyond words.
And that gives you the sort of
and then to have
the
people,
backing.
And then you have people coming on media, whatever, and justifying this shit. And then basically making the argument you said last time that they deserve it, basically, is the moral argument. Even as elaborate as they think they get in their argumentations, essentially all it boils down to is what we always say. It's basically they deserve it, they're evil, they want to kill us. So
Yeah.
because theoretically, in some theoretical universe in the future, these people, if given rights like every other human on Earth, maybe they'll try to kill us. Let's just kill them now and get it over with, is the argument that is being posited here, which is
And
beyond ridiculous,
and
right?
it's
I mean,
been
when you,
parroted. It's been parroted all over the media,
yeah,
sad to
and I
say.
mean, so I mean, essentially, they want us to turn a blind eye to a genocide, ethnic cleansing happening in front of us because there might be a hypothetical one if they don't do it on the other side. This is insane. It's insane.
Yeah,
What do you think,
look,
Luigi?
the killing of civilians has gone a little bit too far, and I think that the US is also
Even the
starting
UK and
yeah.
Germany, even the
Hmm.
UK and Germany made a joint declarations a few days ago. That was like,
Yeah.
yes, they've killed too many civilians. So I mean,
If I'm getting
at this point, all of Europe, I'm sorry, at this point, all of Europe is saying too many civilian deaths.
yeah.
Even the United States at this point is making remarks.
So if you're so what you're basically saying is that Israel helped to fund an organization that would drive a wedge essentially between Palestinian politics, sort of divide them. That organization turned out to be extremely violent, and you're
And
basically yeah,
they backed it precisely because it
yeah,
was violent. It was the
exactly,
most
exactly.
violent. Yeah.
Exactly, and now that gives like that violence gives you the moral
Yes,
backing
yes.
to go in and say,
And
I
keep
can do whatever I want.
mowing the lawn
Yeah,
is what
mow
they
the
call
lawn.
it.
My
Yes,
God,
yes,
mow the
yeah,
lawn.
yeah, yeah. Which is beyond words, honestly. The
The
level of
lawn,
insidiousness to carry out this plan on a people.
the lawn has been mowed
Definitely. There is
well
no
and
lawn anymore.
truly.
And should we go to one of the
Yeah, I
disgusting
mean,
advocates for
just
this
to say,
shit?
Gaza at this point is most certainly unlivable. It's basically an apocalypse on Earth. So I don't know what future looks like for that region, but I can tell
By
you
the way,
it's not pretty.
I saw a report, Luigi, where you remember last time you were roughly calculating the civilian casualty
Yeah.
ratio.
Hmm.
And it was
Hmm.
like a study came out, an Israeli study came out that was like 60% civilian casualty, which is more than most wars, I think, all wars in World War II.
Yeah, yeah. It's an unprecedented level of civilian casualties. And the funniest part is that when I listen to Israeli government spokespeople, they basically say we are being extremely cautious. Like the targeting is,
But
done in a
people,
very, very cautious manner. And, there was a story, I'm gonna find it for us, of yeah, basically the Israeli army killing three Israeli.
oh,
Yeah.
okay. Well, to be
Mhm.
exactly precise,
Yeah.
the civilian proportion of total deaths is 61%, what has been calculated in the first 3 weeks of the operation, and it has been described as unprecedented, and the ratio is significantly higher than the average civilian toll in all the conflicts around the world from the Second World War to the 90s, in which civilians accounted for about half the death. And this is just one study. So obviously, there's been indiscriminate shelling of civilians. There's been, let's say, high disregard for civilian casualties.
That I think is an
Oh
understatement.
yeah,
But
yeah, yeah.
yeah,
And what has happened? What
there's
you're
no way.
pointing?
Yeah, so this is another story that speaks to what we're
Yeah,
to the
it's a
larger
good,
point of
it's a good
yeah,
anecdote.
yeah. I mean, it's an anecdote. It's truly an anecdote, but yeah, it seems that there's so little regard for human
for
life, I
for
guess, right
human
now.
life in what they consider the current war zone. Yeah.
Yeah, that well, the story is basically that Israeli soldiers killed hostages even though they were waving a white flag because they thought they were, Hamas fighters or agents or
Uh,
whatever they
yeah,
thought.
one soldier just spotted them and started firing immediately,
Uh,
just shouting terrorists. That's the
yeah.
level of tactics involved in this.
So two were killed immediately. The third died as he ran for cover while calling for help in Hebrew.
He's a liar. All our enemies lie.
I mean, but it's I don't know.
It's
I
beyond
mean,
words, horrifying.
I can understand that it's
Yeah,
a war zone and things like that actually happen in war, but
definitely. But still, I mean, and I hope it turns some heads in Israel for what is happening. Because I mean, they're literally killing their own hostages at this point.
so yeah, the death toll is up to 18,000
Close to
Palestinians.
20, yeah, close to
Yeah.
20 at this time. 20,000 in 3 months. I think that's more than how many are the civilian deaths in Ukraine at this point? Less.
Maybe it might be less actually, and that's the
It's
funniest part. Even though the casualties are vastly greater, we're talking, maybe 400,000 people
it's
at this
incredible
point.
that even the great Boots can restrain himself to a greater degree.
Yeah, it's
Consider that, right?
yeah. I mean, if Putin was doing half of the stuff
They would be
that's happening in
burning his
Gaza,
effigies. They would be
yeah,
burning
yeah,
his effigies around the world, 100%. If he was going half as brutal as what the Israelis are perpetrating upon the people of Gaza. So should we check the interview? Should we check
let's check the interview. We have a lovely interview for you all,
the
and it's
best? It's
the
the
one,
best. Sorry.
the chimeras.
Exactly. I was beaten by one in a Ukrainian biolab. I did my research. I survived. It
Yeah,
was
so
all the
we've got.
pie. Yeah. Sorry, Luigi. I just want to say I also support Israel more than anything. I don't know why. Probably they're paying for my campaign. I don't know.
They probably are. It sounds like it. Definitely sounds like it.
So should we
But
should we get
yeah,
to the
yeah.
great RFK? By the way, I've seen new polls. By the way, the polls are beyond distressing in the United States. Trump is ahead with RFK in the race, and I've seen some other polls, Luigi. I don't even know at this point from whom RFK is pulling voters from. I don't even know, and I don't
He
even
says
know.
it's Trump. He says that it's Trump.
Yeah,
But
I've seen variable.
that's
I've
what the
seen
polls
outcomes.
that's what the polls suggest as well, that Trump voters are a
Some,
little
some,
bit more
some,
likely.
Luigi. Lately, some other polls suggested otherwise, but it's a fudge. And Trump is still ahead with RFK accounted for in swing states. And I don't even know in which states RFK will actually be on the ballot. Let's be clear, right? I mean, if he keeps defending
Yeah.
Israel that well, maybe he can get on a few more states. Who knows? Wink, wink.
I mean, let's look at the interview first, so let's dive right into it.
Let's go. We're gonna
Israel,
do.
obviously, very
Sorry,
Yeah.
sorry, Lily. We're just gonna do the Israel Gaza. I didn't even watch the rest of it. Sorry, guys.
It's all right.
much in the news right now.
He's a threat to Biden. He's like, but now we have to
Sorry
No
about
red lines for the state of Israel and their conduct in this war. Do you have any red lines for Israel?
Well, the red lines are that you don't deliberately, you do everything you can, which I think Israel is doing right now to avoid civilian casualties. But there's collateral damage in every war, and they're fighting an implacable enemy. I mean, I don't think there's any country in the world that would go as far as Israel has gone to not invade Gaza. I mean, Israel was being bombed by Hamas, took over Gaza. I mean, Israel walked out of Gaza. There's no occupation of Gaza.
The blockade, though.
Well, there's a blockade because
Luigi, pause. Literally Putin. At least 10,000 civilians have been killed in Ukraine up to now. Literally,
Yeah.
Putin has more restraint. Should we go on?
Yeah, let's go.
because Hamas declared war on Israel and sent suicide bombers off. So they put up a fence so that it's their, that's like a.
They've got a fence.
Kills his father.
They've got a fence.
Listen, it's a fence. It's dirty. It's just a fence. It's bad. Yeah.
They're doing all they can to avoid civilian casualties.
I mean, I
All
asked.
they can.
I mean, I asked, and they said, yeah, that's what I think. I'm not sure.
Parents, and then throws himself on the mercy of the court because he's an orphan. For them to say that they're blockaded, they're blockaded, and it's not just Israel blockading them; it's Egypt. Everybody has a problem with Hamas. In fact, after the 73 war, after the 67 war, Israel tried to give Hamas back.
Yeah.
But yeah, Hamas did not exist, people, in the 67 war. This is just bullshit. Yes, go on. Hamas in the 67 war, Luigi. What is this bullshit?
He didn't connect them. He didn't say Hamas. He was basically let him finish the point, and we discuss it.
Gaza?
Sorry, Gaza back to Egypt. Egypt didn't want to take it because of the high level of sort of religious militant Islam that Egypt considered a threat to its own government. Let me just finish.
I mean,
Israel.
It's also not Egypt, it's Palestinians. Yeah, I mean, go on. I mean,
Like,
it's their land, basically. It's, I mean, maybe Egypt doesn't want their land, unlike some others.
I have the impression that it used to be Jordan at one point as well, if I'm
The
not
West
mistaken.
Bank. That was the West
Yeah, the
Bank, I
West
think.
Bank.
Yeah,
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 it
yeah.
was.
Correct.
Hamas took over in 2006,
Right?
and they immediately started shelling Israel. So they sent on average 2,000 rockets a year on civilian populations. And their charter and their public statements day after day are it's against Islamic law for them to even negotiate with Israel, except as a ruse. It says that in
My
their
God,
charter.
by the way, sorry, Luigi, it's actually kind of hard to listen to him. Yeah.
Yeah, it's quite hard. But yeah, it gets tiring after a few minutes. I have no idea how this man survives on a debate stage, but
Yeah.
we're about to find out.
The only satisfaction for them, the only goal is to annihilate Israel and kill every Jew, not just in Israel, but all around the world. So Israel, instead
Luigi,
of
sorry, Hamas Hitler confirmed. Let's go.
going in and attacking, if Mexico elected a communist government, and the communist government began sending shells onto civilian populations in San Antonio.
What the
Houston,
fuck is
and
this
state
analogy
where-
about?
It's
What
an
is
analogy to feed the American audience,
It's such a
to
stupid analogy as well.
to
Are they
rile up the patriotism.
Is Mexico and the United States currently embroiled in a territorial dispute? What the fuck are you talking about, RFK?
Notice that it's Mexico, not Canada.
It's
Also.
always Mexico. I
It's
mean,
all-
we know why. We know. Everybody knows.
Where do we take Texas, which they have a legitimate claim to? We're going to retake it.
Did AMLO
How
say
long would it
that?
take us to go in?
Is
It
AMLO
wouldn't
saying
take
that,
us very
Luigi?
long.
Yeah, I mean, Mexico is ready to invade at any moment.
Oh, all
Wait for
right.
it.
All right.
We would go in and we would do whatever it took to take out the people who were sending the shells. And Israel,
By the way, Texas is way more likely to declare independence from the US than Mexico is to invade Texas. But let's continue.
Let's
Let's
pummel
move on.
Texas, dude. That's what I'm getting.
We would do whatever it took in our power. Yeah, start leveling your own cities, see how that
Take
works out
down
with public
Ted.
opinion.
Ted Cruz must be taken down. Fuck you, Teddy.
From Texas with love.
instead of doing that, Israel did something extraordinary, which is it invested in an Iron Dome, which is to defend itself again, just to live with missiles. There's thousands, tens of thousands of Israelis that have, on that part of Israel that have been raised in bomb shelters. Who would put up with that? There's
So
nobody in the
no
world.
no one here is excusing the actions of Hamas, but I think you would agree that
Soggy
one
is-
atrocity does not justify.
Soggy did it. I had it. Soggy did it.
What did he do?
He excused the actions of Hamas.
Oh,
No,
oh, okay, yeah.
By another.
Just joking.
So how can you hold on?
Well,
Hold
wait a minute.
on. How can you say though? How can you say?
But calling it an atrocity.
Let me finish my question.
Go ahead.
How can you say that Israel is doing everything they can to avoid civilian death when the civilian death toll, even by Israeli estimates, and this is the low, this is the best possible number you could put on it, it's 61% innocent civilian, thousands of children, thousands of women. That's worse than the combination of every 20th century conflict combined. So how can you look at that and
Probably meant.
I think it's what
Yeah,
I
but-
said, right? I think
no,
she
it's
referenced-
what you said. Yeah, 60%.
It's the study I was referencing, yeah.
She said it's more than a combination of all
No,
20th
more
century.
than the
She probably meant-
average. Yeah,
Oh, the average.
it's the average,
combine
yeah.
with the complete siege of 2.2 million people and say that they are doing everything they can to protect civilian life.
Sorry,
First of all,
Luigi,
we use it as not.
Yeah.
shut the fuck up, dude. But first of all, Luigi, sorry. It is, but we've got the number that the Israeli study came out with. It's 61% civilian casualty.
Yeah.
That was the
61%
number.
as
I think it's
you
a
know,
bit
an
low.
optimistic,
Yeah.
as a low sort of
I find it
estimate.
a bit optimistic, yeah. But I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not there, obviously.
How do you combine that we are doing the best we can to avoid civilian casualties?
Listen,
Imagine if you
listen.
weren't like.
Imagine if you weren't like there'd be literally no one left at this point.
I
No
mean, instead
one.
of 40% of the buildings in Gaza, you would have like 80% of the buildings down.
Yeah, I mean,
It's
instead of
yeah,
1% of the population, let's go with 10, 20, 30% of the
yeah.
population.
There's a word for that, right? There
Hmm.
used to be a word for that.
Hummus.
Hummus.
We
That's not true.
killed 750,000 civilians in Iraq.
Yeah, dude.
What?
She's talking percentage-wise.
The percentage of the average kill rate in Afghanistan, Mosul, in those battles, in modern warfare is about 8 or 9 to 1, civilians to military.
And
Who came up with that? Do we have to fact check that? There's no way there's a 90%
No,
civilian
and I
casualty
mean,
rate.
Luigi, what kind of fucking argument is, but we did worse in Iraq, boy.
Yeah,
We
yeah.
fucked
Seriously,
them up.
normalizing
Those
the
Iraqis
killing of
got
those civilians.
fucked. We
Yeah,
fucked them up. So what the fuck are you telling about Israelis?
Yeah, bro. I mean, the
Yeah,
civilian
dude,
casualty rate in Afghanistan
um,
should be the standard we uphold in
exactly.
in global conflict.
We are not pro-Iraq war, fucking idiot. I'm sure you've realized that.
you think that's fine?
Well,
80% civilian death, you're
Well,
fine with that?
I don't think a single civilian death is fine. Not a single, but when we went
It
into
happens,
Germany
Krystal.
to get out the Nazis,
Mhm.
we killed 2 million Germans. We bombed
Is this guy
This is
serious?
why-
Is this guy serious? The analogy is the
The
Nazis.
analogy, and I've heard this analogy a
As
thousand times as
a
well.
near superpower that was intent on world domination. It was annihilating anybody. It didn't deem Aryan enough that they found in their paths. Are we fucking serious comparing them with a fucking
yeah.
with a bunch of people throwing fucking rocks and makeshift rockets, for fuck's sake?
An empire with eugenics at its core.
This is beyond ridiculous. And for what? To justify what? Children
To
dying
justify
every day
exactly
in
to justify
Gaza.
that.
Jesus
To justify
Christ.
to justify his donors is what's really happening here. But let's listen from the horse's mouth.
There's an analysis that just came out that showed the bombing of northern Gaza has been more devastating and more destructive than our bombing of Dresden. I would also say after World War II,
Krystal
that's
Saagar.
why
Got him.
we put in place things like the Geneva Conventions to make sure that we did as much as we could.
We did war crimes as well. That's why we have international institutions.
Dresden
basically.
is not something we want to replicate on
Yeah,
your
yeah.
neighborhood, fucking idiot.
Everybody's like, oh yeah, Dresden was worse. You're like, that was an
Have you-
apocalyptic war that brought the world to its knees, essentially. I mean,
And restored the glory of Europe.
questionable statement, but yeah.
Stay tuned to find out.
Stay tuned.
To protect civilian life. So let me give you a specific report that you can respond to. The Washington Post, we can put this up on the screen, guys. This is the second element.
R2.
The Washington Post just reported
Whoa.
that Israel dropped
Sorry,
US
Luigi,
supply.
I love how commanding Saagar is. I love that.
Let's put it up.
White phosphorus in an attack in Lebanon in a way that is inconsistent with the laws of war, directly impacting a civilian population. Are these, now you might say, look, maybe the report's in dispute, maybe we need to go and investigate, but is this or any other of Israeli conduct in this war, is this something that you think should be investigated for potential violations of international law?
Again, if Israel dropped white phosphorus on civilian populations illegally, then they should be prosecuted for war crimes.
Yeah.
But I don't think there's strong evidence that they've done that, and Israel absolutely denies it. There are legal ways to use white phosphorus because it's used, in war, which is as a concealant. And Israel says that's what's doing. Here's what Israel has done.
Pause. Obviously, I can't tell you if they've used it, whether it was whatever. I mean, I don't know. But whether Israel denies it is fucking irrelevant because they will always deny it.
Obviously, thank you. Plus, how can you strike into another country and be using that weapon for concealment?
For fuck's
Doesn't
sake. And it
does that
doesn't,
make any
but
sense?
yeah, but I mean, taking Israel's side is fucking ridiculous. I mean, we don't know, but I mean, yeah, of course they fucking deny it, dude.
I mean, would they admit it? So the US
Oops,
is
I did
concerned
it
about
again.
the US is concerned about reports Israel used US supplied white phosphorus.
Of course, it's US made.
Yeah, by the way, we should, for the audience as well, we should know that Lebanon or other rebels in Lebanon or
Hezbollah, if you're
yeah,
talking
Hezbollah,
about, yeah.
yeah, very regularly fire
Oh, of
rockets into
course.
Israel.
And
So
the border is getting the tensions are rising at this point
yeah.
to a calamitous mass. I mean, there's always potential for escalation. I don't think Iran wants a war, if that's what if that's what we're discussing. At this, I don't think Iran wants a war.
I think
But
that was
it
a
can't be
really
pushed
clear.
to a war. It can't be pushed to a war if shit continues to escalate. 100%. There is always the possibility. But at least we know that they don't want to do it,
I mean,
which is a good sign.
Iran is a theocratic dictatorship. So, I mean, if the Grand Ayatollah decides to go to war, yeah, he can do that in an instant, and nobody can basically stop him. But from their behavior, at least on the global stage, yeah, they're being
They're
how
being
can I put
cautious.
this? No, yeah, I mean, they are the naughty kid on the block in a sense, in the sense that that they are very aggressive, you could say, with their neighbors, sponsoring rebel groups in Yemen, in Lebanon, probably orchestrating a lot of the attacks on Israel as well, or at least that's what the Israelis are saying, and I have no reason to doubt them. So,
I
I
mean,
mean,
from the
yeah,
north, it's basically Hezbollah that's stationed there, and
yeah,
Hezbollah is pretty tight with Iran, no doubt.
exactly. So, I mean, nobody's saying Iran is a good faith actor in any of
No,
this.
no, no, no,
Yeah,
no.
it's but yeah, from their behavior, like the fact that they do the sneaky backdoor kind of guerrilla war, like skirmishes, I guess, in the region, it really shows you that they don't want to be directly involved in a war. And
No, if they
from
wanted a war, they could have one now, right
yeah, yeah,
now. It is pretty obvious, but which is a good sign that they don't want a war. This
yeah,
is a
yeah.
good sign, and it
I mean,
remains on. The ball
you
is
have
is in Israel's court.
yeah, you have like rocket attacks
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
In the Red Sea lately
I'm
against
not. Yeah,
civilian ships as well.
The Houthis, which are again
Those
Iranian backed. Yeah.
yeah, supported by Iran and financed, I guess. So yeah, Iran is definitely a destabilizing influence in the region,
But yeah,
but
you
it doesn't
understand
want to
that.
go to war. Yeah,
And yeah, and in a certain sense, they have to show aggression against this act, even their
yeah,
people. I mean, because it's a dictatorship. I mean, even the general Muslim population.
yeah, yeah. So want to go back to the recording? To
Yeah,
the
yeah.
yeah,
They calls people before they bomb them. Nobody else in the world does that. It's made 20,000 live calls. So somebody, an Arab-speaking IDF member who calls the landlord, they have the telephone numbers of everybody in Gaza. Now, there's a lot of connectivity problems, so they can't always.
Barely sell access.
Luigi.
Let me finish.
They've got the telephone numbers of everyone in Gaza, and they keep bombing everyone to fucking shit.
yeah. I mean, they've got the telephones of everyone, but the people living there don't have telephones anymore.
Yeah, electricity, fuel, what was it?
Yeah.
Medicine, food.
Important minor details.
Minor, minor.
They've made 20,000 live calls with people telling you, here's what's going to happen. You need to move out. In your neighborhood, on your building, they've sent 1.2 million robocalls. They've sent 1.2 million pamphlets. The pamphlets are color-coded for date and for time, so that you don't see an old pamphlet and say, oh, this won't apply.
By the way, like this whole notion of
It's
we
so
warned
ridiculous.
you,
Before we bomb the shit out
and
of your
therefore
house.
it's
Yeah.
okay to destroy anything
Everything.
we
Yeah.
deem I mean, it's a pretty ambiguous kind of term.
And as we discussed, the Gaza games, they have them moving around as well, so that eventually everything is destroyed.
And I think that
Yeah.
is part of the game,
Yeah.
the great game.
I've made. So people know when that building is going to get bombed. And they do something nobody else in the world does because they invented it, which is they send in roof knockers, which is a projectile that hits the roof 2 hours before they bomb the building to warn the people.
By the way, he's referring to the practice of throwing a mini bomb on a building to warn
Jesus
everyone
Christ.
that a real bomb is coming.
Jesus Christ.
And he's right that was, was invented very recently, but it still doesn't make it really okay. I mean, I gave you.
At
By the way,
all,
he
at
said 2
all.
hours. He said 2 hours. I think that's a gross overestimation. I heard, as far as my memory serves, at least, I heard people saying 10 or 15 minutes, and even if it's a couple of hours, is that enough to carry your entire life with you?
This is beyond this guy. I mean, this is just a war crime, pretty much, period. I mean, what if it's a disabled person, dickheads? How does he get out in 15 minutes? What the fuck is this shit? Imagine if it was your house and they called you in a fucking robocall to tell you to get the fuck
A
out.
roof knock. It's called a roof knock, George.
Sorry, Luigi.
It sounds so innocent. We knocked on the roof.
Jesus Christ. And I mean, yeah. 50% of fucking Gaza in rubbles. Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
But they
An
knocked.
unlivable,
Luigi, they knocked.
Yeah, an unlivable hellhole at this point, but yeah, at least we knock.
We knock.
Yeah.
On that building to get out because they're going to bomb it. In warning the civilians, they're also warning Hamas. And so it makes it much more difficult. And the fact there's many nations in the world that would just go and flatten the whole place.
Give us names.
Which Israel could do.
Give us names.
And we would shit on them as well.
And by the way, I mean, you're probably talking about your nation. Give us other names. Give us other names.
Because, yeah, I mean, you're right. Russia isn't doing that.
Give us names.
Because, I mean, Russia has done that in the past, to be fair, Chechnya and so on.
Yeah. Well, we're not excusing DR Boots. Merry Christmas, Boots.
It doesn't have to go in there and put IDF soldiers at risk in hand-to-hand combat. This is Hamas has made a stand. They're putting civilians in the way. What is Israel supposed to do? It can't leave Hamas in there.
How can you avoid the killing of civilians? It's impossible. I mean,
by the way, the philosopher King's argument, you remember Benny Boy? That was his argument.
140 IQ, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's what the 140 IQ points gets you.
What
we are all
in
awe. How do you get rid of
What would you have us do?
What would
not shoot at the...
Not shoot at civilians. I mean, what the fuck? What is this? The Wild West?
I don't think we should accept that from any state, Israel or any other. And I mean, they have rendered.
So would you,
no. They've rendered
by the
Gaza
way, motherfucker is not letting Krystal speak, to be honest. I mean, squirming too much. No.
And I mean,
you're the one getting interviewed, dickhead.
Yeah, you need to let them ask questions, and they can counter argue if you are
100%. We listen to the counter arguments,
of course,
which are all bullshit, most of them. Let's go on.
This point, and there's been reports documenting that some of the procedures that you're talking about that they used in previous wars, they're not using this time. They've emphasized this attack on quote unquote power targets, which are things like civilian infrastructure and high-rise apartment buildings, not to get Hamas, but to create a quote shock in the civilian population. In addition, as I mentioned before, you have collective
shock, Luigi.
2.2 million people.
Shock the civilian population.
A mere shock.
Shell shock.
A shock.
As it used to be called.
Who are having their access to water, food, fuel, medicine blocked right now by Israel. This also appears to be in violation of the Geneva Conventions. Do you think that it's acceptable to impose a siege on the entire civilian population in Gaza?
If there's a violation, first of all, I don't think that's happening. I don't
Okay.
think that's happening. Let me explain.
Like, her face says it all, and I mean, I agree. How is that not happening? Who disagrees with the cutting
Yeah,
off,
yeah.
with the siege of Gaza,
By the
essentially?
way, her demeanor is on point. I mean, she never
She's
lost her cool, yeah.
yeah, but like you can see it painted on her
Yeah,
face.
oh,
She's
I mean,
disgusted.
who wouldn't be?
If it violates the Geneva Convention, or if they're deliberately, at any point, anybody is deliberately targeting civilians, they should be prosecuted and they should be jailed and the key should be thrown away. But people say.
By the way,
But I
notice the
mean,
fact Israel,
Israel
notice the fact
denies it.
in his choice of words, deliberately is very different than
Yeah.
having no regard for.
Indiscriminate. So, I
Yeah,
mean, you're talking about
you
the
might not be deliberately
which, by the
targeting
way,
civilians, but if
I want to say it's a distinction without a fucking difference, as far as I'm concerned.
but I don't know, in
The
lawyer
civilian,
talk,
the civilians are dying. I mean, any other.
the civilians are still dying, but I mean,
But
intent
did they
somehow
really want to
matters.
kill them?
Yeah. No, but they didn't really want to kill them, but they also didn't care if they didn't kill
So
them.
they're dead. So, I mean, beautiful. Beautiful lawyers, beautiful things.
This. But, I don't see any proof of that. We right now, that people are deliberately targeting civilians.
But the government announced they were doing a complete siege on the 2.2 million.
Yeah, okay, you're talking about the siege.
She's talking about various people in the fucking Israeli government coming out, calling them human animals, calling them, saying we're gonna fucking stop, we're gonna siege them, we're gonna stop fuel, we're gonna stop food, we're gonna stop medicine, they're talking about that. They're talking about Bibi coming on fucking national television and telling them that they are Amalek. And as far as I know, Luigi, in the Old Testament, that
Is
means
a biblical reference.
that is a biblical reference indeed, and that means that basically we have to genocide them because every man, woman, and child, because that was the nation that the peoples that the ancient Jews had to eradicate from the face of the earth. So I mean, when you call them Amalek and shit like that on your national TV and everybody loves it, it's a bit of a problem, RFK.
Again, we are not criticizing an entire nation just because of the choice of words of its prime minister.
No.
A very unpopular one at that. So
it's an unpopular prime minister, but we have to know that the general opinion in Israel is trends pretty right wing.
Yeah. I mean, you have to imagine, especially after October, after the initial attack.
And before that, Luigi, and before that. Yeah. But after October 7, Jesus Christ, I mean, I don't know. I've seen some polls. They're going for the moderate right wing. They're never going to go for left wing, but we'll see. We'll see in coming elections. They definitely don't want Bibi. But also on their polling that I've looked at, I don't think that the majority wants him out before this war, quote unquote, is over.
Yeah. And Bibi is holding it
holding on for dear life to extend this as much as possible. Basically.
Which is a very, very twisted set of incentives. If your prime minister's political career hangs on the war continuing, guess what? The war is going to continue.
Yes. Let's go on.
Now, we did for 10 years, we did collective punishment of Iraq. We actually killed.
I'm not going to justify that either here.
Why are we just going?
She's like,
but dude,
we did too, dude. We did too. What the fuck?
After the Jews, why is the only one Israel?
Jesus Christ, dude.
Tax dollars are
calm the fuck down. That's when the Jews the guy, by the way, who gets caught on a hot mic talking about Ashkenazi fucking vaccines and shit. Calm the fuck down, dude. Calm the fuck down.
Going on, and the visuals of these children being killed and losing their parents and the rubble and the total destruction. This is something
I have friends in Gaza. Okay, I have a friend who's a father.
He has parents.
Look, I have a black friend. I have him. He told me.
They call me refugee.
He told me, RFK, Habibi RFK. Let them kill every one of us. At least hummus is good. That's what my friend tells me. I have a black friend in Gaza.
I have a friend in Gaza. He calls me every few days and says, "You
RFK,
haven't dropped
Habibi.
enough bombs." RFK, more bombs.
More to kill hummus. I lost my family today, but at least hummus is dying. Jesus Christ.
And what he's living through right now is horrible.
It's
I
horrible.
have many Palestinian friends. I've been to West Bank. I've been met with the Palestinian leadership. I love the Palestinian people.
Wow, you
It's
have a way of
excruciating what's
showing it. You have a way of showing
Yeah.
it, dickhead. Wow.
watching what's happened. But why are we blaming Israel? Why are we
Because
blaming
they're the
the
ones
people?
dropping the bombs
They have
with
to.
our dollars.
They have to get at Hamas. They have to destroy Hamas. And Hamas,
Bravo, Krystal.
unfortunately,
By the way, bravo.
built
I
tunnels
mean,
for themselves, but they did not build bomb shelters for their people. And they,
By the way, he's just parroting all of the same tired
yeah. We
points
can do
of the last
him.
2
Yeah.
months.
We can do him as an amalgam of every fucker out there that does the same shit.
There's nothing particularly new. He's just like,
Oh yeah,
no,
they
no,
gave
no,
him
we
all
have
the
to
all
kill
the all the
civilians.
points. Yeah.
Yeah, we have to kill civilians because civilians are in the way. Yeah,
They have
an excellent
tunnels,
plan.
dude.
And by the
They
way,
have tunnels.
yeah, they have tunnels, and at some point, I'm really getting tired of watching this guy. But at some point, they ask him about the potential for what he thinks about the two-state solution, and basically says no.
Does he? All right.
No. He says that the two-state solution was offered to the Palestinians
Oh,
several times.
I can counter all the bullshit that he spews at that point. Yeah.
Israel has told people, move to the south. There's food trucks there. There's medicine there. There's
There's
fuel
not.
there.
But there's not.
It's
The
only
area-
not, it's
the-
only
They-
not
they-
there
The area
because
they
Hamas
told them
steals
to
it.
go to is an area that is the size of LAX airport. It is a desert wasteland. There are no UN flag facilities. In fact, if you ask the Secretary General of the UN, he'll tell you there are no safe places in Gaza. You already have 1.8 million people who have been displaced from their homes. So, at what point do you say, okay, it's enough? Because the other piece of this, even if you say, and I know you're not saying this, I'm not putting, but even if you say, I don't care about the Palestinian lives, they got to do what they got to do. It's the cost of war. What are you going to do? There's also a lot of evidence that what they're actually doing is fomenting increasing support for Hamas. Because if you think about
Obviously.
it,
As we've been saying,
Obvious. I mean,
violence breeds violence.
and I mean,
it's
you
so
keep
simple.
killing their family members, their houses. I mean,
Yeah,
what the
yeah.
fuck do you think is going to happen?
I mean, you destroy someone's life, especially when they're
Everything.
younger. Guess what? I mean, they're gonna be pretty angry. The violence doesn't, it goes around in a vicious cycle.
if you're a kid, your parents get blown up, what kind of politics do you think you're going to have when you grow up? Isn't that going to be tremendously radicalizing and incredibly compromising to the security of Israelis alike?
So how would you get rid of Hamas?
How would
Well,
you what the
I'm not
fuck?
ex-
What the,
President of the United States, no.
exactly.
Exactly.
I mean, what the
exactly.
fuck are you
Yeah.
saying, RFK? You're the
Well,
one being
I'm
interviewed,
asking you.
dickhead.
I think we have a model for this in a sense from the way we went in and approached bin Laden. So it was a targeted raid. If you're actually going to do this, you do a counter-terror operation where you go in a targeted way. You create a wedge between Hamas and the civilian population. And we see how this works in the past because previously in Israeli society, when there were pathways to peace that were on the table, where the Palestinian civilian population felt that they had a chance at negotiating some sort of a peaceful outcome, guess what? Support for Hamas falls off a cliff. It's almost a one-to-one relationship with the more brutal the response from Israeli for support for radicalism that there is.
You can filibuster.
I'm not filibustering. You asked me a question. I'm trying to answer it.
I think you're filibustering. You're not answering the
By the
question.
way, he's such an asshole because he literally asked her the question and he's like, no, I'm asking you a
Yeah.
question.
Yeah. He's
You're saying
obviously,
like
sorry,
wedge,
Luigi. He's obviously uncomfortable at this discussion. Evidently
yeah.
at this point.
Yeah.
Of course, Israel's trying to drive a wedge.
By
How's it-
offering some other path that's not
And what
terrorism
is that
and not
path?
By
What is
not
that?
and so it has
just,
the two-state solution.
yeah.
By not
Give them,
just.
give them an actual pathway to 2 states.
Mhm.
Or some sort of, but that's not
Well,
what's impeded.
and the Palestinians not only have rejected that, but Hamas, its whole purpose was that
Hamas,
the reason
by the
that
way.
Hamas was able to
half the fucking people in fucking Gaza right now, when Hamas was voted in, weren't even fucking alive.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we've said this 1,000 times.
Jesus Christ, I
The
mean,
last election was in 2006,
these
and
people just
half of the
keep.
population is under the age of 18. 40% of the population is under the age of 18.
It's unbelievable the amount of atrocities being carried out on innocent children at this point.
Yeah. On a kindergarten at this point.
To get all this popular support and take over was because of its opposition to any negotiation.
Hamas just came out and said that they support Israel's PLO and recognize Israel's right to exist. On the other hand, you have the ambassador. Hold on, you have the ambassador, the Israeli ambassador to the UK saying we will absolutely no to a two-state solution.
I just cannot let you tell that's just not true. Ismail Haniyeh was on TV on Al Jazeera yesterday, saying we're going to do this again and again and again. We will never negotiate.
Which we covered and
And who created? Who created this monster? Who fucking funded this shit?
As we covered at the beginning, and more crucially, what do you replace them with? Like, how does this look at the end of this whole war? I mean, you can call it a war, but it's not really.
You want to go the total violence route, you got to go for total violence then, because there's no other way. You've left no other option.
Yeah.
What about the facts? But hold on. What about the fact that Netanyahu and his government have said absolutely no? They built up Hamas to try to thwart any sort of Palestinian statehood.
But I'm not defending Netanyahu, and I don't co-sign, what Netanyahu and Likud.
But yeah, dude.
Israel.
You keep saying that the reason we don't have a two-state solution is because of the Palestinians, and Krystal keeps fucking reminding you that Israeli government officials at the top fucking echelons of the government are coming out on fucking television and telling you out loud that they don't want a fucking state for the Palestinians, literally. And you just, dude, what the fuck are you asking me? That was Lord Cameron's response as well, wasn't it?
Lord Cameron, the returning hero, bringer of Brexit, master of geopolitics.
And he was like, dude, you gotta ask Bibi that. What the fuck are you asking me? I'm here about hummus. I'm here about hummus. Fucking idiots.
They think country in 80.
Sorry.
Over 20% of the population on the street demonstrating against Netanyahu. What I'm saying is the Hamas is a criminal enterprise.
Sure.
The Palestinian, and you talk about solutions for the Palestinian people. The Palestinian people are arguably the most pampered people by international aid organizations.
Are you kidding me?
Oh my
God, they're pampered. They give them so much aid. I wonder why, Robert. Why is it, Bobby, that they give them the aid?
Bring out the Bernie stats. Bring out how many are in poverty. How many?
Maybe it's because we bomb their houses every few years.
What a
Maybe
disgusting
something to do with it.
And by the way,
they are pampered. They're so privileged, my dude. He actually just played that card.
Yeah, it's beyond disgusting, beyond words. But I actually checked the fact checkers, Luigi, like Ron DeSantis does, and the Washington Post gave him
the left wing fact checkers.
I've got a fact. They're the only ones.
The leftist fact checkers.
I'm sorry to reveal this to you, but they're the only ones fact-checking at all, at any point, because if you're going to wait for right-wingers to fact-check shit, we're fucked.
It's fake news. Fake news.
Anything anti-Trump is fake. But I mean, what I was going to say is that they calculated, basically, whenever he goes on about aid to Palestinians, just bear in mind that combined aid from the world given to Palestinians is less than what Israel receives by the US alone. Just bear that in mind. Just bear that in mind.
Wow.
And that's the Washington Post.
Fact.
That's the Amazon Post.
Yeah, I mean, That's the sneaky
Just
lawyery bullshit
yeah,
that it's
yeah.
like, oh, they get so much for it. Oh,
And they do
okay.
get aid. They do get aid.
Yeah, they do
Imagine
get aid.
that. But imagine
For
that
good reason.
the Israelis get more just by the United States. The Israelis, by the way, had received many billions from Germany as well in the form of reparations.
Uh-huh.
Before this war, 78% of people in Gaza
Well,
said they had, not enough food to eat.
Right. And why is that? Why are you blaming
Well,
Israel?
in part, it's Hamas, and in part, it's the fact that Israel imposed a blockade and talked about putting them on a diet.
If your neighbor, first of all, Israel has no obligation.
First
Israel
of
built
all.
3,000
Right.
houses and gave them for greenhouses. That would have made Gaza completely food self-sufficient. Gave it to them as a gift, offered to rebuild the port of Gaza to make it the Singapore of the West.
Pause.
Hamas and
Pause.
we don't.
Pause.
Singapore
Pause.
of the West.
I
Wow.
bullshit. All of it bullshit.
Wow.
Bullshit claim, not supported by any fucking evidence anywhere. I found a far-right website going on about this. This is bullshit. The Israelis did not offer the fucking Palestinians to make the fucking Singapore
The
and fucking
port of Singapore. Yeah. That will
of
make
the
total
West
sense.
in fucking Gaza. This is beyond bullshit. Just spewing this shit out shows the level of intelligence you hold your listeners at.
Excellent.
Don't want you money, we don't want you ideas. And what do? The international aid agencies have given Gaza more than 10 times per capita what we gave to rebuild all of Europe after the Marshall Plan. They've got 8,300.
Sorry,
Per capita was the shitty word there. Europe is a country of 500 million.
Exactly.
Of
A country,
500
Luigi.
million
We have
people.
aspirations. We want to be one with the Germans.
Like, how do you even compare that? Like, we gave way more for rebuilding Europe, and that was like 70 years ago as well. And you're comparing how much we gave to help 500 million people with a single country per capita, which means per person.
And I mean,
This guy's so sleazy, honestly.
yeah. And I've given you the fact checking I found. Bear in mind, whenever he talks about the aid to Palestinians, Israelis get more, both in net and per capita. I think per capita lately is sort of equaled out, but I mean, bear that in mind.
Excellent.
$100 per capita. Every person in Gaza. We rebuilt Europe with $621.
You
per
didn't
capita.
do shit. You RFK Jr. did not do shit to rebuild Europe, amigo. Just stating that out. You were not. Was he born then, even if he was by a fucking baby?
Nobody cares. But that's not even important. The important
I'm
thing
sorry,
is
I was triggered because he mentioned the motherland. Sorry, Luigi.
He's gonna say something like $600 per person for Europe, and something higher for Gaza. I
Palestinians.
wonder, is he comparing $1945 to
Oh
today's
yeah, I mean,
dollars?
I haven't checked that one specifically, Luigi. The one I found about that. Yeah, we have to really look into this. Yeah, but even and even if they have, every 5 years they get bumped to shit, and he's going to talk about corruption, Hamas. Hey, let me do it.
Europe, and we rebuilt it. What did they do with that money? Instead of using it to make this, Gaza's this beautiful country, white sand beaches, it should be a paradise.
It
used to be beautiful. It used to be very beautiful.
Yeah, but it's barely a fucking neighborhood, dude. Come on, I mean, a country. Jesus
I mean,
Christ.
it's rubble at this point and a bunch of hungry children. But yeah, let's move on.
Hamas said, we don't want that. They take virtually all of that money and they steal it. So the top five leaders of Hamas are billionaires.
Pause.
Ismail Haniyeh has $5 billion.
Thank you, Liz. This is probably true. I mean, the best I found was New York Post article. That's Murdoch's shit. But I would be inclined to believe that, that Hamas's leadership is extremely corrupt. And remember who fomented Hamas and backed them.
And
so
why
that
would
fucking
that be any
RFK,
surprise?
and so that fucking RFK can now come on television and tell you that Hamas is super corrupt and you have to wipe them out and they're terrorists, which they are. Like, it's a good gig if you can get it, and you can stomach it as well.
Well, yeah, I think we've heard the main points. Do you want to keep going with this, or?
Let's keep going a little bit more.
According to Forbes.
But Bobby, again.
Wait, let me just finish.
It's
No, because
affecting
you made us,
us.
you are making a statement that is just wrong. It's not Israel's fault that Gaza is poverty stricken. Gaza it should be one of the wealthiest states on the
They have no
Mediterranean.
control over their
I'm-
own territory.
Sorry, Luigi, I'm willing to blame Israel almost entirely for this.
Yeah,
I'm sorry. I'm sorry,
I mean,
RFK Jr.
Economically speaking, if you have a blockade, yeah.
And beyond even the blockade, and I mean, the backing Hamas themselves, right, letting it rise to power, fomenting all the radical elements of society to gain the upper hand, so you can do this shit now. No,
Israel controls everything that comes in and goes out.
If you go to war, no, Krystal, why
Hold on.
why do you insist on blaming Israel and then blaming
No.
Hamas?
I do blame Hamas, but you know what?
Well,
It's really
I
our
think
tax dollars do not go to Hamas. They go to the Netanyahu.
Yeah, and why? And you know
Our
what?
bombs, 22,000
You know what
their
most-
bombs dropped
Right,
into
you know
the
what?
population right
You
now.
know what most of our tax dollars have gone for? For the Iron Dome, which is a way of not invading Gaza. Our country and Israel for 16 years have expended this huge amount of money to try not to go into Gaza, while Gaza sent 2,000 rockets a year, suicide bombers, and of course Israel's going to like
Israel come in and quote unquote mowed the lawn.
They've gone in 5 times, and every time they've signed a peace agreement with Hamas, and every time they violated that peace agreement. Let me
Well,
just.
Israel also has
But
been
why are you-
Palestinians to one side. But hold on. I want to
Listen,
know
if Mexico attacked us and we built a fence, would you blame us for caging in Mexico? Well, I don't know what it is, but everything in your mind is telling you to blame Israel
Bobby.
instead of blaming Hamas.
Bobby, hold on.
Let me just finish.
Let me, because I want to
We
get.
blame whoever
is
does
doing.
the innocent killing of innocent civilians. It's a very simple logic to understand. We blame Hamas for doing what they did on October 7th.
7th. Yeah.
And we blame the actions that the Israeli government took after that. I mean, it's very simple to understand. Throwing blame
because of
on
that.
one side makes zero sense. Clearly, it's a fucking complicated issue. It's the chimeras. The chimeras are messing with my brain.
There are
My
some
voice.
Chinese chimeras, yes.
And Game Then Saagar has some questions for you on free speech that I want to make sure we get to because I think this is important as well.
Saagar is like, I'm gonna speak at some point. Don't worry. Don't worry. Don't worry. I've got this.
Netanyahu has said, and what he's tasked his senior advisor with. But he's.
Let me answer your.
Dude, he's the fucking prime minister of the
Minister.
fucking country. I mean, okay, you don't support him explicitly, but you support the country and he's the representative. I mean,
He's the one who takes executive decisions, motherfucker.
Yeah.
I mean, he's the
he
one.
decides when the war ends, basically. I mean, what the fuck?
I haven't even asked a question.
Let me finish answering your last question.
Can we put this element up on the screen? Netanyahu has said that he wants to, quote unquote,
So
thin out
commanding.
the population of Gaza to a minimum.
Jesus
There is
Christ.
simultaneously a proposal that is
By
being
the way,
shot
I
here in
mean,
DC.
ethnic cleansing. That's what this is.
Yeah, I mean, thinning the
This is-
population to a minimum
This
sounds
is
sounds fire. I mean, that sounds bad. And this is from Brian Graham, who is actually a very
we love him.
decent reporter.
Merry Christmas,
the best.
Ryan.
Yeah, Merry Christmas, Ryan. Thank you for doing God's work. Somebody has to do the dirty work.
Bipartisan support that would use our aid dollars to countries in the region to pressure them to accept Palestinian refugees out of Gaza to enable Netanyahu's plan of quote unquote thinning out the population. I'm sure you know he has been very cagey about what he wants the future of Gaza to look like. What do you want the future of Gaza to look like? And is there any circumstance where you would support pushing neighboring countries to resettle Palestinians?
No, I think, listen, I don't, as I said, I don't co-sign anything for Netanyahu or for Likud.
But he's
That's
in
all I'm
charge.
saying.
So I know, but he's
Well,
the
how would you
person.
deal with him?
How would you deal with it What would be
Tell
your
them.
plan for the future of Gaza? If
I think right now, I'm all ears is how do you get rid of Hamas? I think you have to get rid of Hamas. Hamas is a criminal organization that is making they
But
lead the five
afterwards, Bobby,
leaders,
afterwards.
seven are all billionaires.
How do you
the
convince
way-
the other side, Bobby, that doesn't want to give Palestinians anything, let alone a fucking state, Bobby?
Captain Arafat died a billionaire. Mahmoud Abbas a billionaire. His two kids who run West Bank have $750 million. It is a criminal enterprise where
By
they
the
are
way,
stealing everything.
I don't want to say, but I mean, Bibi is basically going to court about fucking corruption charges. Just want to say, the Prime Minister of Israel himself, not a stranger to criminality,
Send Bibi.
saying Bibi.
From the people of Gaza, and then they raise them from kindergarten to kill Jews. I saw the 43-minute film.
Yeah, let's go a bit
GoPros.
forward. Really, it's the they want to kill us argument. Yeah, they want to kill us.
Kids are being raised as serial killers. They're
does
being
that make
raised.
them legitimate targets?
Well, the terrorists, yes.
I'm talking
No,
about
you're
the
saying
terror.
the kids, does that make them legitimate targets?
No, that's not what I'm saying, Krystal.
And what are you saying,
What
dickhead?
I'm saying is Hamas is oppressing its own people. It's stealing from them and it's turning them it's taking away their childhood instead of, just distributing this huge amount of money that they've gotten, building a wonderful culture and society and economic prosperity for them.
They're being
Instead, it has
blockaded,
one
though. They're being blockaded. They're not being given a state. Even now, their land is being taken from them in the West Bank, where there is no Hamas. What is this shit, dude?
Yeah, honestly.
Which is to annihilate Jews. And kids, their schools are named after Jew killers. Their streets are named after Jew killers.
You know,
They are
majority of
they are
Palestinians,
paid bounties to
you
kill
know, a
Jews.
majority of Palestinians in Gaza support a two-state solution.
Well, the polls I've seen right now, I'm all for a two-state solution. Show me how it happens. The last time that Arafat was offered that, which was by Clinton and Ehud Barak in 2001, he was offered everything that the Palestinians had asked for, everything, and except for 3% of the West Bank. And they said, we'll give you 3% of Israel. Those are the suburbs around major Israeli cities that are settled. Oh, and Arafat walked out of that negotiation without a counteroffer, and he later explained to Prince Bandar, if I made a deal, anybody who makes a deal with the Israelis, they will be killed by our own people.
So I
Pause.
just
Okay.
Okay,
We're
Yeah.
gonna finish. We're gonna finish on this,
Enough, yeah.
and I will counter you what bullshit he has provided you. What he's talking about the negotiations between Arafat, the Israeli guy, and then Clinton. What he's talking about, these are behind closed doors, verbal negotiations. Anybody who tells you that knows exactly what was discussed in those negotiations is lying to you. And anybody who sides with the Israelis, because obviously Israeli officials after the negotiations blamed the Palestinians. I blamed Arafat, and so did the Americans. But nobody really knows. Well, what we do know, parts that we do know, is that the Israelis were not willing to give the Palestinian state that was being negotiated control of its airspace, and they wanted it demilitarized as well. That's not a real country, to be honest with you. And those are just the parts we do know that the Israelis would not agree to. So, his argument that they were given everything is beyond fucking bullshit, Luigi.
You have to assume that, that if there ever is a two-state solution, the Palestinian side is never going to look like a normal state, like in the traditional sense of, having a military or things like that. It almost has to be demilitarized now. Whether that can ever be acceptable to the Palestinians
Would it be
is a
acceptable to a single nation? Do you know of a single nation that has accepted this thing?
Yeah. No, not really, but I also don't know of another single nation that has been at war for this long.
It's a terrible, and Norman Finkelstein, we've mentioned him, great guy. I think he wrote in one of his last books that basically all the compromise was from the Palestinian side regarding those negotiations, just so you know.
Which makes a lot of sense.
Listen, the Israelis are not willing to give East Jerusalem to the Palestinians. You don't need a fucking sage to tell you that.
They won't.
And I've even seen
pretty clear.
I've seen a study by someone that Lord Cameron that advises Lord Cameron. I know that sounds bad, but I've seen he said that about 200,000 Israeli settlers would have to be relocated for there to be a viable Palestinian state. It's not as big as number as you might think, but even that I think is impossible at this point.
Yeah, I guess it's gonna become
Regarding,
clearer. Yeah, as hopefully as it starts to wind down, but no sign of that just yet.
but
In
we
any
wanted
case,
to respond to the great RFK Jr.
the great Bobby Kennedy
who will
Jr.
have, as we've said, he will have a role to play in the coming election, it seems. Unless he doesn't manage to get on the fucking ballots.
Yeah, he probably will. A very brief honorary mention to quote unquote elections
Hail,
in Egypt.
hail, comrades. He nailed it. He nailed it.
He nailed it, 90% of the vote almost. That doesn't happen in democratic states. And by that I mean it actually doesn't
Oh.
happen.
But let's finish. But let's finish with this. Yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes. An
All right.
incredible performance. What else is there to say?
That the world keeps getting worse, but we are here to make fun of it all, George. Thank you for another wonderful week, another wonderful session. See you all next week.
Merry Christmas, everyone. Bye bye.